It's Monday, October 31st. I'm David Song, currency analyst with DailyFX, and there's a lot to watch going into November as we do have the Reserve Bank of Australia, the Bank of Japan, the Federal Reserve, as well as the Bank of England interest rate decisions all coming up over the coming days. And we'll wrap up the week with non-farm payrolls on Friday, so we'll see if some of these key event risks will generate a meaningful pickup in market volatility. But I personally wouldn't be surprised if we do see some range-bound conditions, again, ahead of these key rate decisions, along with some of the bigger data prints scheduled for the days ahead. But over the next 24 hours, we'll certainly keep a very close eye on the key developments coming out of the Asia-Pacific region, and we'll see if we get more of the same out of the central bank officials as they continue to weigh the monetary easing from early on this year. So we'll see if we get more of the same out of the BOJ as well as from the RBA. But there's a lot to watch out of Australia this weekend, even beyond the November 1st interest rate decision for the RBA. We'll see if Mr. Philip Lowe and company will lay out anything meaningful as they will reveal their quarterly monetary policy report on November 4th. So another key dynamic to watch, along with the third quarter retail sales report coming up all over the coming days. So we'll see how this will fare on the higher beta currency. But for now, there is a near-term setup that I'm watching where we did come up against a key juncture, 100-day moving average, which has lined up fairly well with that long-term bull trend line that I have dating from all the way at the beginning of the year. Also, the RSI largely preserving a similar dynamic there as this one, also retaining the bullish formation carried over from the summer months. So we'll see if we get a continuation of the broader pattern here. I guess we could even argue that this looks like an ascending triangle formation. So we'll see if we get a further coiling action here before we approach that apex. And remember the textbook definition here, 20-30% before we hit that apex. That's the tendency in terms of timing that we look for meaningful move. So we'll see again if some of the key developments out of Australia will be the key catalyst to trigger a meaningful move here. But for now, we've done a pretty good job of holding above that 100-day moving average. Looks though we did get a failed test of that monthly low at the same time. So we'll see if we get a further advance to the top side. First hurdle comes in right around that 76.50 area, followed by key resistance right around that 77.30, 77.40 zone. So we'll see if we can move back towards the top of the recent range, top of the holding pattern here. But for now, it looks as though the Reserve Bank of Australia widely anticipated to retain the current policy. So I personally wouldn't be surprised if we do see some further range-bound conditions over the coming days. But on a broader outlook, I'll stay constructive here. We'll see if we get a kick higher. And again, we'll see if we get a bigger coiling action here as we're approaching the apex of the triangle formation. We'll see if we can clear some of the topside targets to see the broader bullish pattern largely gather pace over the remainder of the year. But along with that, we'll keep a very close eye on the dollar yen as we have seen some meaningful advances in the exchange rate over the last few days. So it looks like we'll largely preserve this rebound that we have. Some may argue that, again, we should watch the broader bearish pattern that we have carried over from late February, early March period. So we'll see if we get a resumption of this longer-term downward trend. But for now, and again, as we do have the BOJ as well as the Federal Reserve over the coming days, I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to congest in this tight range. Topside hurdle comes around that 105.40 zone, 105.30 area. We're looking for that meaningful closing price above this region for further advance with the next topside target coming in right around that 106.60 zone. But to the downside, we've been holding above and closing above former resistance right around that 104.20 zone fairly well over the last few days. We'll see if that dynamic will continue to hold up over the coming days. But here's a slight disconnect that I have been mentioning with the RSI signature, where we've made this failed attempt to break above 70 to push into overbought territory. So we'll see if we could wind up for a move higher, not only in price, but again, for another move higher in the oscillator. But of course, we'll leave it up to the BOJ this week, along with the Federal Reserve, as well as the U.S. non-farm payrolls report coming out on Friday. We'll see how this will all fare for near-term price action. But again, as we start off a new month here, and as we wrap up the October trade, just be mindful that we may see some position adjustments here, especially over the next 24 hours. So we may see some choppiness across the major currencies. But there are some other pairs that I'm watching. And again, as we have the RBA, BOJ up on tap over the next 24. I've been talking about this Aussie yen pair as it's coming up to a very key dynamic right now. And let me start off with the broader picture here. We're still preserving this very bearish trend from all the way back in 2015. And, it's really this indicator that I think is taking a lot of attention at the moment right now. It's that 200-day moving average. So we ran into that just late last year. We ran into that a few times this year, but every time we've came into that key moving average, again, the 200-day moving average, we've seen a meaningful sell-off, and not only a sell-off, but accompanied by a longer-term series of lower lows. So we'll see if we get a similar dynamic this time around. And again, as we have the RBA as well as the Bank of Japan on tap, we'll see if they will reveal anything new. But here's one of the risk factors that I see surrounding the BOJ. As we continue to see negative price growth in Japan, I'd be a little bit more concerned about the BOJ. If we do get any sort of surprise, my view would be maybe more of a dovish tilt to the monetary policy outlook, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see the BOJ sort of move the goalposts in achieving their 2% target for inflation. Currently, they're looking at the second half of 2017, fiscal year 2017, to achieve that price stability goal. We'll see if they will move that bar later down the time frame as, again, they continue to see, or as Japan continues to face negative price growth. So for now, Aussie yen, I'm not sure if we're going to get the similar reaction this time around. All I want to note is we're coming up against a key juncture. It looked as though we were holding this sort of ascending triangle formation right now. But I'll be, again, watching the broader themes here. We'll see if the longer term trends will look to reassert itself, especially if we do get more of the same from Governor Kurno and company. And we'll see whether or not the RBA will clue us in on what they will do next. It looks as though we could see the RBA gradually move away from the easing cycle. However, as they continue to warn about this low inflation environment and as they expect that to persist over the coming months, I wouldn't be surprised if, again, maybe the RBA will try to take one last shot in supporting the economy, and we'll see whether or not they'll continue to embark on that easing cycle. But I'm looking for some clarity here. Near-term hurdle to watch, again, 200-day moving average, that 80-10, 80-20 zone there, a 50% extension region that I'm watching. We'll see if we get a meaningful closing above that to reinforce more of a bullish outlook over the near to medium term. But again, watch that long-term trend here. We'll see if that 200-day moving average will show a similar reaction as we've seen over about the last 2 years or so. So with that, looks like we have some key setups on our hands. We'll see if we get anything meaningful from, again, the RBA, the BOJ over the next 24. But again, we still have the Fed to face, and along with the Bank of England Super Thursday event. And don't forget, this is where we will get the fresh projections, the new quarterly inflation report. And we have heard BOE officials warn that these new updates will reflect the marked appreciation in the exchange rate. So we'll see whether or not we get some meaningful adjustments to the growth and inflation forecast on Thursday. But until then, again, continue to watch market conditions here as we start a fresh month of trade. And with that, the best of luck on all your trades and have a great day.